My family said I'd make the wedding awkward. They said it like a fact, not an insult. My mother's voice was calm, my sister's fiancé smirking in the background. Just try not to ruin your sister's day for once. Okay, she added, like humiliating me was a favor. No shouting, no scene, just quiet exile wrapped in polite smiles. I watched them drive away that morning, the car stuffed with roses and promises. I didn't follow. I stayed home tracing sunlight across the floor, wondering how family could celebrate by erasing someone. That night the news broke and their perfect day went up in flames. I grew up in a house where silence was a form of love, where my mother's approval came in small nods and my father's praise in fixed smiles. My sister Nyla was the shining one, the kind everyone rushed to protect even from her own mistakes. I was the builder, the one who cleaned the mess, who made sure things looked perfect again before anyone else noticed the cracks. Maybe that's why I became a restoration contractor. I liked fixing what other people broke old houses' furniture, sometimes even people. When Nyla announced her engagement, I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. I helped her choose flowers, measured the backyard for extra seating, even paid the deposit for the venue when her card declined. I told myself it was what family does, but the closer the wedding got, the less I was needed. Group chats went silent. Planning calls accidentally happened without me. At first I thought it was oversight. Then I realized it was intention. Mom became the messenger. She called with that overly careful tone, the one she used when she'd already made a decision for me. "It's going to be a small ceremony," she said. "We just want everything peaceful." I asked peaceful for who, she sighed like I was already exhausting her. "Just try not to ruin your sister's day for once, okay?" That line sat in my chest like a stone. I wanted to ask when I'd ever ruined anything when covering for Nyla's debts, or babysitting her kids, or co-signing her failed cafe loan counted as sabotage. But I didn't. You can't win a war they don't admit exists. The next week, I drove to my parents' house to drop off some tools Dad needed for his garage project. The house looked the same as always. Victorian trim, peeling paint curtains drawn. Inside, Mom was arranging white roses in a vase. For the rehearsal dinner, she said. The kitchen smelled like vanilla candles and control. "Your sister's dress fitting is tonight. You could come if you promise not to make things uncomfortable." I almost laughed. The line between invitation and insult was so thin in this family, it was practically invisible. "Don't worry, I told her I won't make anything uncomfortable." Her smile tightened as if relief and guilt shared the same face. That evening, I stood on my porch watching the sun drop behind the Rockies, the air sharp with pine and coming rain. I thought about how easily people can rewrite history, how my absence would become proof that I didn't care, not the result of being told not to come. Somewhere music was starting, a celebration I helped build when I wasn't meant to see. Maybe silence really was love in my family, or maybe it was just a prettier name for erasure. The day before the wedding, my phone buzzed with photos I was never meant to see. My cousin posted a rehearsal selfie, my parents front and center Neela in white, her fiancé Travis with that salesman smile that always looked like it came with fine print. The caption read, "Tomorrow's the big day. Everyone looked radiant, everyone except me, because I wasn't there." I told myself I didn't care that I'd earned a quiet Saturday free from family politics. But when the laughter in those pictures started to feel too loud, I turned off my phone and sat at my workbench. The Buchanan Project, a century-old farmhouse I'd been restoring, was waiting for me. I ran my hands along the smooth grain of the newel post I'd repaired. Strong, balanced, stable. Everything my family wasn't, By afternoon, a storm rolled in over Denver. The sky bruised gray thunder pressing against the windows. I made tea, not wine this time, and tried to convince myself that staying home was the right choice. No scenes, no whispers, no giving them more ammunition to paint me as difficult. Still, the quiet felt strange, like holding your breath for too long. At 6, Mom called. I watched her name blink across the screen until it stopped. No voicemail, no text, just silence, which in my family was never peace, it was punishment. When night fell, the city lights flickered through the rain. I stood by the window watching headlights blur on the wet street, wondering what was happening miles away at the Ridgewood estate. I could picture it too easily, my parents greeting guests with rehearsed smiles, Nyla glowing under chandeliers I helped choose Travis, charming everyone with empty compliments. A notification pinged. Another, then dozens. I picked up the phone. Group messages flooded in. You're missing out. The ballroom looks insane. Best wedding of the year, I scrolled through each photo, a knife. My family, laughing, champagne flutes raised toasts to new beginnings. Then one message cut through the noise. A direct text from Mom. Hope, you understand why we thought it best this way. We love you. No period, no heart emoji, just a statement clean and final. I set the phone down and stared at it. The rain outside thickened into a steady downpour. Water streaked the glass like the house itself was weeping. I whispered, so I didn't go. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. Still, guilt has a way of sneaking in through the quiet. By 10, I'd paced half the house, checking the locks, tidying tools that didn't need tidying. Every sound made me jump. The thunder, the creak of the old floorboards, it all sounded like footsteps, like ghosts I couldn't quite shut out. I sat on the floor beside my half-packed toolbox, the smell of varnish still clinging to my hands. If I showed up at the wedding, what would happen? Would they glare? Would Nyla cry? Would Travis grin and call me dramatic? I pictured myself standing outside the ballroom doors, invisible, but still somehow in the way. No, I wasn't going. Not this time. I'd spent my whole life fixing what they broke, covering their mistakes, cleaning their messes, pretending we were fine. But families like mine don't want peace. They want obedience dressed as forgiveness. I closed my eyes and listened to the storm clawing at the roof. Somewhere inside that noise was freedom, the kind that comes only after you've stopped asking to be invited. Down the street, a transformer blew, plunging the block into darkness. My reflection vanished from the window, and for a moment it was just me and the sound of rain steady and relentless. I thought, maybe this is what starting over sounds like. But peace never lasts long in my family, because a few hours later, when the lights came back, so did the world, and it was on fire. That night, the storm finally broke. Lightning flashed through my windows, white and violent, splitting the sky in half. I was lying on the couch, the television humming low in the background, some home restoration rerun I wasn't really watching. I told myself I didn't care what was happening at the Ridgewood estate. I'd done the right thing. Staying away was strength. Then my phone began to buzz. Once, twice, then nonstop. I ignored it at first. Probably more photos. More proof of what I wasn't part of. But the vibrations didn't stop, they multiplied. Calls, texts, notifications from people I hadn't heard from in years. I grabbed the phone. The screen glowed with chaos. Are you seeing this? Oh my God, turn on channel 9. Rose, it's your sister. Something happened. My stomach dropped. I switched the TV to local news. The footage was shaky, taken by a guest's phone. The caption read, "Breaking news, violence erupts at Ridgewood wedding." For a second, I thought it was some mistake. Then I saw her. Nyla, my sister, in her white satin gown, makeup streaked hair unraveling. She was screaming. Across from her stood Travis, the man who'd been all charm and easy smiles, now red-faced and furious. He shouted something, the words lost under the roar of the crowd. Then he raised his hand. The slap cracked through the speakers so loud I flinched. Gasps echoed in the ballroom. The camera jolted. Someone screamed. Then the feed cut out. I sat frozen, my wine glass trembling in my hand. The rain hammered the roof like applause from another world. My phone lit up again, Mom calling. I didn't answer. The call went to voicemail, then another, then another. I stared at the missed call counter climbing higher, each one a small, desperate apology. Finally, I played one. Her voice came through thin and trembling. "Rose, please, your sister's hurt. She needs you. We're at the hospital. Please come." I pressed the phone to my chest, breathing shallow. For years, that was my role, to rush in when things fell apart, to clean, to fix, to forgive. But something in me shifted that night. They'd told me I would ruin the wedding. Turns out they didn't need my help. I turned the TV volume down. The anchor's voice was still talking about alleged assault and charges pending, but it all sounded distant, like static. I walked to the window. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street glistened under the streetlights, quiet and washed clean. I could have grabbed my keys, driven to that hospital, held Nyla's hand like I always did. I could have been the dependable one again. But what would it change? I hadn't been invited to her joy. Why should I be summoned to her wreckage? My reflection stared back at me in the glass, tired, pale, unflinching. "Not this time," I whispered. The phone buzzed again. Another call. Another chance to fall back into the role they'd written for me. I silenced it and set it face down on the table. The house was quiet again, only the clock ticking. Somewhere, sirens wailed in the distance. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The morning after the wedding, sunlight felt wrong, too bright, too normal for what had happened. I woke to another avalanche of messages, headlines, and 100 different versions of the same video. It was everywhere now, on TV, online, even replaying muted on a cafe screen when I went to grab coffee. "Local wedding ends in assault," the captions read, looping the same grainy footage over and over again. In the clip, Yu's white dress looked almost translucent. Under the chandeliers, her face streaked with mascara. Travis's shout came muffled, but the sound of the slap was unmistakable. The crowd's gasp was sharp enough to pierce the room every time I heard it. Someone's bouquet hit the floor. Champagne spilled. Cameras flashed. That's how it ended. They're forever captured in 30 seconds of chaos. By noon, the story had spread beyond Denver. Every outlet recycled the same details: prominent engineer assaults bride during Ridgewood Estate wedding. A few tabloids mentioned family tensions. Someone even dug up Nyla's failed cafe venture, painting her as unlucky in business, unlucky in love. And me, they left me out completely, which was fine. For once, I didn't mind being invisible. The first knock came that afternoon. I didn't have to check the peephole. Only one person knocked like that, 3 quick raps, 1 long pause, then 2 more. The rhythm of control. I opened the door. Mom stood there, face pale, hair pulled back in a messy bun that didn't suit her. She looked smaller, like the weight of public shame had shrunk her spine. "Rose," she whispered, stepping inside before I could answer. "Your sister's resting. The police questioned Travis this morning." I nodded once, arms crossed. "You should probably sit." She didn't. She walked straight to my kitchen counter, the same place she'd scolded me months ago for not calling enough, and gripped its edge like it might hold her up. "It was horrible," she said. "He just snapped. No one saw it coming." I stayed quiet. Her eyes darted up. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please don't make this worse. That line almost made me laugh. Worse. You told me not to come. I didn't. And it still turned into a disaster. Tell me how that's my fault. I didn't say it was your fault. You didn't have to. For a long time, only the hum of the refrigerator filled the space between us. Then she whispered, "Your sister's asking for you." I exhaled slowly, trying to steady the rush of conflicting emotions. Anger, guilt, pity. Of course she is, I said finally. She's always asking for me when the pieces are already broken. Rose, please. She needs support. The press, I cut her off. The press will move on. They always do. But you, I stepped closer. You told me staying home was best. You told me my presence would ruin everything. She flinched. I was trying to protect her. No, I said. You were trying to protect the illusion. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. My mother never cried when people were watching. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table, the weight of her perfume still hanging in the air, lilac and guilt. For years, I'd accepted that this was what love looked like in our family, selective, conditional pretty when it wanted to be seen. But the truth was simpler. Love that demands your silence isn't love. It's management. 2 days later, my father came by. He didn't knock, just appeared in the doorway of my garage, wiping grease from his hands like he'd walked straight out of one of his half-finished projects. Your mom said she stopped by, he muttered. She did. He nodded, eyes tracing the tools hung on the wall. You always kept things tidy. Someone had to. He winced, but didn't argue. Your mother's taking it hard. She feels guilty. She should, I said. She built this. He looked down. Nyla's moving back in with them, the kids too. Of course she is. She wants to see you. I turned to face him. And what do you want, Dad? He hesitated. I want peace. I shook my head. Peace isn't pretending nothing happened. He didn't stay long after that. Just left a brown envelope on the workbench before leaving. Inside were copies of the loan documents, proof that the money I'd sent them for mortgage help had been used to cover Nyla's business debts. Every page was a reminder of how far the lies went. I could have confronted them right then. I could have screamed, called the bank, reported the fraud. But I didn't. Not yet. Because revenge, I'd learned, wasn't about fury. It was about timing. So I waited. A week later, a local reporter contacted me for comment. You're Rose Alvarez, right? The bride's sister, she asked. We've heard there's more to the story. I almost told her everything. About the favoritism, the lies, the way my parents rewrote history every time Nyla failed. But then I thought about what silence had done for me so far. It hadn't just protected me, it had revealed them. No comment, I said, and hung up. That night, I drove past my parents' house. Reporters still hovered on the sidewalk cameras trained on the porch light. Through the curtains, I saw Mom pacing phone pressed to her ear. Dad sat at the table, shoulders heavy. Nyla's silhouette moved upstairs, slow and uncertain. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. The next morning, I mailed the bank copies of the documents. Not anonymously, not with malice, just truth delivered where it belonged. I didn't need to watch the fallout. A month later, the house went quiet. No reporters, no parties, no Christmas lights that year. My parents sold the property. Nyla started working 2 jobs, slowly paying her own bills. No one thanked me, and that was fine. I wasn't looking for gratitude. Sometimes justice doesn't shout. Sometimes it just leaves you alone long enough for the truth to echo. One evening, I sat on my porch, the mountains turning pink under the sunset, a faint chill crawling through the air. I thought about the girl who used to fix everything, the one who'd do anything for peace. She was gone now, replaced by someone who finally understood that not every house is worth restoring. My phone buzzed. A text from Nyla. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad it was until it happened to me." I typed back, "Then don't repeat it. No lecture. No pity. Just a line drawn clean in the sand." When I set the phone down, the sky was deep blue and still. Somewhere behind those mountains, the Ridgewood estate stood empty, flowers wilted, lights off, ghosts left to themselves. Their perfect day had burned down, and for once, I wasn't the one holding the match. Months passed, and the chaos faded like smoke after a fire. The scandal had settled into silence. New headlines replaced the old, and the world stopped caring. But I couldn't unsee what I'd learned, how fast love turns conditional when control is threatened, how easily family can mistake silence for forgiveness. The Ridgewood estate reopened for new weddings that spring. I drove past once out of curiosity. The roses were gone, replaced by tulips. No trace of what happened, just polished wood floors and freshly painted walls. It looked perfect again, like nothing had ever cracked. But I knew better. You can scrub blood off marble. You can't clean guilt out of memory. Nyla stayed quiet for a while. She got an apartment, a job at a local florist, and stopped leaning on anyone to rescue her. When she texted pictures of her kids helping her unpack, I didn't feel bitterness, just relief. Maybe she'd finally learned what I had: standing on your own hurts less than kneeling for approval. As for my parents, they sold the old Victorian house and moved somewhere smaller. No one told me where, and I didn't ask. Some doors once shut don't need reopening. On weekends, I kept working, restoring old homes, sanding away rot, uncovering the beauty beneath years of neglect. One afternoon, while polishing an oak banister, I realized something simple. I'd spent my whole life fixing things that didn't belong to me. Now I only fixed what I chose. Sometimes I still think about that night, the lights, the scream, the headlines, but not with anger, with clarity. Because the truth is, I didn't destroy their perfect day. They did. I just stopped pretending it was perfect. I used to think love meant showing up no matter how many times they shut the door. Now I know love also means walking away when the cost is your peace. I still get messages from strangers who saw the video, people asking if it was me. I tell them the truth. It was all of us at some point loving the wrong people too long. Families break, heal, and sometimes stay broken, but silence. It's not weakness. It's freedom. If this story hit something in you, tell me where you're listening from and hit subscribe. You're not alone in this.